to another episode of Career Spotlight,
a podcast that highlights the different paths of many successful people.
So first off, I just want to say thank you so much, Chloe, for coming on the podcast today.
Of course.
So first, can you kind of share with us what it was like for you growing up as a child actor and attending a performing arts school like LGA?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in New York City and I started acting when I was literally 4. I was on TV even as a baby because my mom had a friend who was a producer on, now it's Kelly and Mark, but at the time it was Regis and Kelly.
Okay.
And literally whenever they needed a kid, they would just have me come on. And then I got so into it when the people from, do you know the Wonder Pets? Are
Yes.
you too young to know the Wonder Pets?
No, I know. Yeah.
The people from the Wonder Pets, when that first came out, they came to my preschool to test the audience, I guess. They showed us the show and wanted to see what we thought. And I always kind of had a big personality and talked a lot. And so when I was telling them what I thought of the show, they liked me and they asked me to come in and audition. And so I ended up getting cast on the Wonder Pets, and I was a recurring guest star on that show. From kindergarten to 3rd grade, I guess was when it ran. And so I loved it, and I got an agent, and I was a huge theater kid, and I was in all the shows, and I auditioned for a lot of things. And I think, I only got very few of the professional gigs I tried out for. It was the Wonder Pets was the first thing I ever auditioned for, and I got it. And then after that, it obviously became a lot harder to get roles. Acting is a very difficult career. So I think, and after high school, all of the rejection sort of caught up to me and I was fatigued from it, so I didn't want to do it anymore. But yeah, and then performing arts school, I have to say I did not love. And that's a hot take. People love, I feel like with LaGuardia, people either love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
And I do know people who absolutely loved it. I personally didn't. I didn't really have a positive experience there. I think the competitiveness of the environment was very, very toxic for me, especially I had come from a private school that was very much it was small and individual and focused, and everyone sort of was kumbaya, we're such a community. Yeah. And at art school, it was just, everyone was thrown, and I was doing drama class in a basement for 4 years, and the days were so long because you had 4 periods of your art in addition to your 5 academic periods.
Okay.
And then if you got into the shows, which obviously everyone wanted to, you would have to stay after school for rehearsal. So if you were in a show, you could be in the school building from 7:45 a.m. to 10 p.m. on certain nights. So it was just and then you would have to go home and do your homework, and then you would have to wake up and do it all over again in the morning. And so that was always very exhausting and difficult and just anxiety inducing overall. And then I would see my other friends at other schools living that traditional high school experience, and I was I wish I had this. So that's why I ended up going to Syracuse, because I really wanted that traditional just campus and school spirit and Greek life and football games that I didn't have in high school.
So speaking of that, since you really didn't have that experience in high school, you did end up going to Syracuse University.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience at Syracuse, what it was like between, I know you started off at the BFA program and then you switched your major, so talk to us a little bit about that and just your overall experience at Syracuse.
Yeah, so since I was obviously a child actor and had gone to an arts high school, I thought my natural trajectory would be to do a BFA conservatory in acting. And I had done a pre-college summer theater program called Artsbridge, which Artsbridge was lovely. Artsbridge is great. If you do want to do theater in college, I would definitely recommend that as a stepping stone. But yeah, I got into the BFA program at Syracuse, which is a very difficult program to get into. It was my first choice. I loved Syracuse when I first toured. I immediately felt at home there, and I think perhaps grades-wise, I likely could have gone to a more academically rigorous school, but I just loved Syracuse so much. And I felt so at home there, and their acting program is, one of the best in the country, and I auditioned for the acting program. I got in, I did ED there, and I got in, and I was so excited. And then at LaGuardia, I was the lead in the senior musical, and I started to kind of fall out of love with acting because, like, I was like, oh, I'm the lead. Like, I should be so obsessed with this. But I was honestly, like, more stressed and miserable than I was, like, yay, I'm the lead, you know?
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I was like, do I really want to be waking up at 6 a.m. every morning to, like, roll on the ground and, like, practice breathing? I was like, I want to, like, learn like real things. Like and the drama building was like off campus, so I felt very insulated. I also had like a heartbreaking situation with one of the boys in drama, so I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah,
get me out.
We don't want to be here.
Yeah, it was really tragic. But I ended up, so my freshman year was COVID. And I joined my sorority. I was in AE5 at Syracuse, loved it. And so after I rushed, I was sort of like, okay, like, I clearly don't know a lot of what's going on main campus. I only know what's going on in drama. And I had met all these girls in my sorority who were, like, doing all these cool things that I didn't even know existed. And so I, like, called my mom freaking out. I was like, I want to change my major. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I, like, went home and was just doing my acting classes literally on Zoom, which is the worst thing any person could ever do, is an acting class on Zoom. And then, yeah, when I got back to school, fall semester, it was literally, like, during COVID. We still were on campus, but it was COVID. And so I, like, went through absolute hell to just change my major. Like, I was, like, calling all the academic advisors, like, in my mask, and I was like, please, like, let me change my major. I don't want to get up at 9 a.m. to act anymore. Yeah. So I ended up doing a dual in communications and writing. I kind of created my own path with that, and I wound up also being the editor-in-chief of a magazine called University Girl, which was the campus, like, fashion and lifestyle magazine, and I, like, completely took it over and revamped it. And I always say University Girl, I feel like, is what made me into an influencer. Like, I was the influencer of, like, the campus when I ran that magazine. Yeah. And also then with my writing major, I was always doing scripts and comedy and writing a book, and my acting skills from my whole life acting have also given me all this, like, improv and comedy training. And all I ever really wanted to do when I was acting was, like, play the roles I wrote for myself. So I was like, all of this audition stuff is giving me such anxiety. Yeah. I need to create this stuff for myself. And now from the degrees in communication and writing, I had all of these other skills in marketing and copywriting and all of that. So I think I was able to use all of my education to formulate my own path and my own career, which was really cool.
That's really cool that you're able to do that. And do you mind talking a little bit about, like, the process of, like, kind of changing your major?
I think, like, honestly, most of my friends had changed their major in college. Like, you choose your major, if you think about it, when you're 17. Yeah. So you're going to be a different person after a year of college. I know so many people who either go in undecided and then declare sophomore year, or, like, think they want to major in one thing and then change, whatever. And, like, people do full 180s. Like, people will be, like, engineering majors and then change to, like, advertise. Like, you know, it's just so crazy. People will just do a complete 180. There was another girl in the acting program who had dropped out of, like, she switched her major from acting to literally, like, pre-med. Like, I was like, all right, girl, that's
complete 180.
Switch. Yeah. That's a switch up. I was like, I just went, like, a soft, like, hop from acting to, like, writing. But it was really funny. Yeah, definitely a lot of people change their majors. I always tell people, do not be afraid to change your major. The major you select on the Common App when you're 17 is, like, arbitrary. Like, you also, like, freshman year, you're mostly taking gen eds anyway. Likely, like, whatever easy writing and science classes that are required to graduate will be required for most majors that you would be in anyway. But yeah, I always tell people not to be afraid to change your major. It was just a bit harder for me to get out of the acting conservatory because I didn't have to take gen eds when I was in acting. So it was really hard for me to, like, transfer credits, and there were, like, certain majors that wouldn't have accepted me just since I'd only taken acting classes, and then like me trying to transfer my like AP Spanish credit from high school. Like it was just like kind of, it was also in the middle of COVID, so I couldn't have these meetings in person.
Yeah.
So I'd be on like the phone with all these academic advisors. I think it's a lot easier also if you're in person and you're able to like hand someone a transcript or just like talk it out. But, you know, I'd be sitting in my dorm in a mask with phone and be like, can you help me please? And they'd be like, well, we're not on campus, we're fully remote. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
That definitely made it more difficult, but thankfully it's not 2020 anymore, and hopefully no one ever has to go through that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your life, like post-grad.
Right when I graduated, I had applied to a bunch of jobs, either like didn't hear back or, you know, I would make it to like final rounds and then get rejected. I was getting very anxious and fatigued, and it was hard because it's like, you know, you can be so involved in college, you can have a perfect GPA, you can have had every internship, and it is still so hard to get a job today. Yeah. And I was stressing out. I was like, am I not good enough? Whatever. I actually ended up, my first job out of college was I worked, do you know Love Shack Fancy?
Yes.
It's a clothing store. So I worked in a clothing store. Like I fully just, when I tell people I worked at Love Shack Fancy, they assume I like worked in the office, like in marketing. I fully was like selling dresses in the store. And honestly, it was really fun. Like it was a great first job out of college. I also had like an assistant manager. I ended up getting promoted. I had like an assistant manager position in the store, which it was kind of hard, honestly. But yeah, it was fun. And I did that, and I was able to also like, you know, get a bunch of fun outfits out of it, like that I probably would not have been able to afford otherwise. So it was really cool. And, you know, I got to work with all these like fun Love Shack girls, and everyone was very cool. And then I ended up taking a job as an assistant to a different influencer who I don't think like my generation would know her either. She's more of like for like motherhood kind of, and like millennial people, but she was awesome, and it was so great working with her as well. And I think she also gave me a lot of insights into brand deals. But what was really nice about that job was the schedule was really flexible. And so when I had downtime, I was like, I have all these ideas. Why don't I just start making videos? And I'd had a few videos go viral like before. I just wasn't posting consistently. And I was like, I know I have these ideas in me. I won a lot of writing awards in college as well. I won the award for excellence in writing at Syracuse in 2022, and I won like a screenwriting award in 2021. And I was like, you know what? Like, let me try this. Yeah. Let me just do it. I graduated also with like a writing honors degree, and like I was one of 6 students to graduate with that degree. And I was very like, let me try to do this. So I started going full throttle, and I was posting like multiple times a day. And then in March of 24, oh my God, last year. Oh my God, I have no concept of time. In March of 2024, I had a video go viral. It got 5.5 million views. Wow. And from that one video, I'd gained like 8,000 followers. And I had already had like a solid little following because of like a few videos that went viral like during COVID and during college, but it was like they were stagnant. They were like one-offs. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, like I can do this. I'm going full force. And since then I'd grown my platform, and I became self-employed in October. And now I work with brands, and I speak at Jewish youth organizations and conventions, and yeah, it's so amazing. It's really great.
That's so great that you're able to kind of like make this path for yourself, and now are able to kind of do what you love. So you built like a lot of your content around being Jewish American. So how do you incorporate like your real life experiences into your content?
So I always knew that like what I wanted to do was reclaim stereotypes behind the phrase JIP, Jewish American Princess. And I also wanted to just reclaim a lot of Jewish stereotypes in general, especially like within the Reform Jewish community, because I often think that like when you look in the media, a lot of the Jewish representation is either super, super religious, like Orthodox, Hasidic, rabbi kind of representation, or it's like depressing Holocaust movies. And I think there is so much fun and comedy within these teenage experiences like summer camp and bar mitzvahs, and also as you get older, like the classic, like there are like Jewish sororities and fraternities in colleges, which is I was in a Jewish sorority, and there are also like all the Jewish kids like from Long Island and Westchester moved to Murray Hill after college. I don't live in Murray Hill, for the record.
Okay.
That's and people are always like, oh, do you live in Windsor Court or View 34, which are like the two buildings in Murray Hill that everyone lives in? And I'm like, I actually don't live in Murray Hill.
She does not.
I know, it's crazy. So I've always written down literally everything that has ever happened to me, probably since I was 12 years old. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I was writing down stuff that happened to me at bar mitzvahs and camp, and also just, like, I did a lot of theater, and, like, all this fun stuff would always happen at, like, cast parties, and, like, I would just write everything down. And I wrote so much about my life, and then when things would happen to my friends, I'd write it down, or when things, I literally would overhear things on the street and write them down, or just, like, common knowledge of, like, basic things that happen. I'm like, oh, this would make a good skit. And so I'll take one idea and I'll expand upon it. And sometimes I literally, like, will do research. I'll be like, towns in Long Island. Like, you know?
Yeah.
But it's really become such a thing. And I think, do you know who Murray Hill Boy is as well, Max?
Yes.
So I feel like it's cool because he and I kind of blew up around the same time. Mm-hmm. So we've created this little niche on the internet for, like, the Jewish reform community, and it's really great, and he's lovely. We become good friends just from doing this. Like, we didn't know each other before, which it's funny, people think we did. People are like, are you two related? But yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah, that's really cool. Another big focus with your content is the camp experience. So can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like, your experience at camp, and how that's influenced you? And
yeah, so my first viral video was a camp video, and I went to a sleepaway camp called French Woods. I went for 7 years. My best friend in the whole world, I met her at French Woods, and she and I literally are like, she also went to Syracuse. We're like ride or die, partners in crime. We wrote a screenplay together. We're starting a podcast together. Like, she's my, like,
other half.
Whatever. In everything I do. And we met at French Woods, and also, like, my childhood best friend, like, our moms sent us to French Woods together. Like, really, I have, like, my best friends from college. I would say outside of my college friends, all of my closest friends went to camp with me. And French Woods is a theater camp, because I was a theater kid, and I had the absolute best time there. It was so much fun. Theater kids are wild and a different breed. But it was so much fun there, and it would be, like, competitive to, like, audition, but it was also more fun than, like, school, because it was camp, and no one really cared that much, you know? And we still had, like, the lake, and the bunks, and the dining hall, and the everything that you would have at a normal camp. And you all get so close, because you're, like, living in the bunk together, and, you know, at post-grad, too, you do really reconnect with your camp friends, because you're like, these are the people who knew me when I was, like, 14 and, like, going through puberty, and, but there are so many, and it's funny, because, like, you're, like, at your craziest at camp, because it's, like, summer, and you're just, like, running around, and there are no responsibilities, and that, I think, there's an element of nostalgia within it, but it's also so funny to talk about, like, all of the things, like the lice outbreaks, and the impetigo, and the nurses, and the dining hall, and the kissing, and the, like, you know, it's, like, it's so much fun. And yeah, so my first video was about getting ready for a camp social. And I did it with one of my friends who is not a content creator or an actor or anything. She just happens to be, my friend Haley is just one of the funniest people I've ever met. She just is naturally, like, you know how some people just, like, have a celebrity and you, like, laugh? So I was like, would you want to do this video with me? I have an idea. And she was like, sure. And it ended up blowing up. And it was, like, the two of us being like, oh, we're getting ready for the social. Well, there's a boy from my Hebrew school going. Are we going to form a grind line? Or should I, like, try to play it cool? And it was so funny. And it blew up. And here we are.
Yeah. No, that's so great. And I love that you're also, like, incorporating your friends and, like, your childhood friends in this. And it is, like, really, like, I guess kind of nice and wholesome to see that you've created, like, this world for yourself, but are also able to bring in, like, people that are really close to you in your life.
For sure, I'm the type of person who, like, I want everyone to be a part of it. I want to share the success with people, and I also, like, love to use my page to, like, share charities and organizations. Like, I'm very much the type of person who's like, if I'm doing this, we're all doing it together, you know?
Yeah. That's really, really sweet and really, like, kind of amazing to see. Okay. So, can you talk to us a little bit? You kind of touched on it, but if you don't mind, like, kind of walking us through your process of writing your scripts for your content and, like, what that's like?
Sure. So, I have a running document of all of my ideas. And so, like, I'll just pull up, like, the document and give you an example from, like, 2025 content. Okay. So let's just say, okay, this is a video I did the other day. Glow up summer is just the idea that I came up with. Like, you come to camp and you have a glow up that summer. So I'll come up with the idea and then I'll script out, like, either points I want to make, like certain jokes I want to hit, or like I will fully script it out and ideate it. It really depends. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, I know I want to hit this joke, but I don't know how I'm going to hit it. And a lot of the time also, if I'm doing a collab, if I'm working with another creator, or even just with a friend, it becomes more improvised because you're playing off of each other. Because it's like, you know, acting is reacting.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to play off of other people too, because you never know what they're going to say or what they're going to do. Like, sometimes when I do videos with, I don't know if you know Libby Shio. Yes. She's another Jewish creator. So she and I do a lot of videos together. And sometimes I'll be like, I'm going to say something funny and surprise you and just do how you would react. You know, because sometimes that's where the humor comes. It's, like, so much more organic. But anyway, when it's just me, I typically do script them out. I have the script behind my ring light because I don't memorize it. Like, I memorize it, like, one line at a time. And then I will film it with a green screen. I'll edit it, and yeah. And I try to post one skit per day. If I don't post a skit during the day, I do try to post some sort of, like, story time or get ready with me. I really do try to be consistent in my content. If I go a day without posting, assume I've had, like, the worst day of my life, or I'm deathly ill.
Okay, someone check about Chloe.
I had COVID and I was still posting on TikTok. Like, I had COVID and I was still doing skits.
Wow. So if you're not posting, someone check up on Chloe because she's not well.
Yeah, no, like, literally. It's so funny because the day before I broke up with my boyfriend, and I broke up with him, but it's so funny because the day before I did it, I didn't post at all, and he was literally like, I knew you were going to break up with me because you didn't post on TikTok yesterday.
Wow.
It's so funny. Like, that's just...
So can you also talk to us a little bit about how you handle negative comments or criticism on your content, especially since you are kind of focusing on something that's really personal to you?
I have to be honest, like, I'm a hate comment blocker. Okay. Like, there are people who, like, let the hate comments sit on their page or will even respond to hate comments, like, either defending themselves or, like, making fun of the hate comment or whatever. For me, if I see a hate comment, I just delete it. Sometimes if it's, like, really bad, I'll, like, screenshot it just in case I ever need to, whatever, like, report someone or something. But, yeah, otherwise, and it's funny because I have a friend and I was just with him yesterday who just started, like, a Jewish company, and he has, like, a full document of all of the anti-Semitic comments he's received, and it's not funny, obviously, but it's like almost ironic, like, just to see how much people can hate online. Luckily, fortunately, knock on wood, I haven't been subject to that aggressive of anti-Semitism yet. And when I do receive those types of comments, I really just, I just delete them, or if it's really bad, I block the user.
You also mentioned, and you've posted a little bit about this, how you struggle with anxiety. Mm-hmm. So do you mind talking to us a little bit, if you're comfortable, of course? Talk a little bit about that, how you deal with it, and kind of anything along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I was diagnosed with anxiety in 5th grade. Like, I was always a very anxious kid. I was first diagnosed when I had emetophobia, which is a fear of vomit. It's like, and someone threw up in my class in 5th grade, and I had panic attacks uncontrollably for weeks after. And so I ended up like being tested for anxiety and, other mental health issues. So I was diagnosed with emetophobia and generalized anxiety disorder. I was literally 10 when I had those diagnoses. And so I always went to therapy. I was in exposure therapy for emetophobia, which honestly worked. Like, obviously I'm worse with vomit than most people. Like, I do still like freak out and get really grossed out about it, but I'm certainly not at like the panic attack level that I was when I was a kid, which is so amazing. And I know that like I've learned that like throwing up is your body's way of protecting you from something that's not supposed to be there, but at the time it was just like so bad for me, especially like in elementary school and camp, like kids throw up all the time. So I was just like, but yeah, I have always struggled with anxiety, and I think for me, I've obviously always gone to like therapy. I think it's really helpful to have someone to talk to about it, but also there are just practices that I do on my own. If I'm having like a particularly anxious day, something that I do is I like to practice gratitude, which I know sounds kind of stupid, but I'm telling you it works. Like, when you are anxious about one thing or another, think of all of the things that you're grateful for that day, and it can be small things or big things. Like, for me, it's like, I'm grateful that, I live so close to my parents and I can see them whenever I want. And then it could also just be like, I'm grateful that they like put my favorite movie back on Netflix. Like, it can be like dumb little things or grander scale things. And I feel like that often like will placate my anxiety. And I have to be so real. Like, some days, like, you just have an anxious day and it's okay. Like, you need to go under your weighted blanket and like watch TV and just chill, and you are so entitled and allowed to those days. Don't feel less than because you're having a bad mental health day. Like, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
I feel like now that I am an adult, I have been able to get that like anxiety under control, but I do still have anxious days, and I used to have so many more, I think, panic attacks than, like, knock on wood, obviously, than I do now in my adulthood, but definitely as a kid, I had a lot, and as a teenager, I would have a lot of panic attacks.
And going back to what you said about like gratitude, I think that's actually like a really good like coping mechanism for anxiety, to kind of just like center yourself.
It keeps you grounded, I think.
It keeps you grounded.
For me, people would always tell me to like meditate. I'm so bad at meditating. I'm way too fidgety to do that. Like, I need to be doing something. Yeah. But I think like the gratitude is really good. Yeah. I think it helps you. And also like, think about like the things you can control, Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone who's interested in, creating their own content, being a content creator, or just like any advice to just anyone in general? Because a lot of like the people that are listening are going into college, and we are seniors in high school right now, so.
Yeah, oh my gosh, well, congratulations. That is so awesome. Yeah, I think, my main advice for starting college is chill, de-stress. You can be a different person than you are your first week of college. Your first year or two of college will really like change you as a person, and you don't need to be interested in the same thing you were in high school. Your major can change, your friends can change. Join clubs, find people with similar interests. That's how I met my friends. And yeah, I would say for starting content creation, 2 things: consistency. You have to post every single day. Like, hold yourself to that. Post every single day. Second of all, find a niche. Like, find something that you will become known for. Like, okay, I became known as like the Jewish camp girl, but like, even like, this is like a really crazy example to use, but like, I always think about like the 4 Seasons baby. Like, you have one thing, like the woman who like runs the account is like the baby's aunt, and she like had been posting like forever, but she didn't go viral until like the 4 Seasons baby. Like, you have to find like that one thing that makes you viral, I think. And then also I would say another thing too is another piece of advice that like any influencer will give you is like, act as though you're already an influencer, like post as though you already have 1 million followers. Like, you're like, oh, you were all dying to see this video, Yeah. You can't be afraid that like people will make fun of you, because like they will. They're going to. But then once you get famous, they're all going to be like, oh my God. Like, it's so funny because I was always so scared to post in college because I was like, oh, the older girls in my sorority are going to like make fun of me. Yeah. But now like everyone who I was like worried would make fun of me is like, oh my God, we need to hang out. I'm like, please, you know?
Yeah, no. 100%.
That's just like what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast again.
It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah. No, you too. Once again, that's all I have for you guys today. I'm your host, Rashida Punawala, signing off.